The lockdown in South Africa forced almost half of small businesses to close down, and this is according to Business Tech. As if that was not enough, the recent protests, supposedly because of the arrest of former President Jacob Zuma, dealt a major blow largely to black businesses in Gauteng as well as in KwaZulu-Natal. But even before all of these incidents, small businesses were already struggling, with most complaining that there's not enough intentional leadership, political reform, as well as financial support. Now, today on the show, we're asking the question, do South African black businesses lack the capacity to build enterprises that can rival white and Afrikaner businesses in the future? Now, to add your thoughts to the discussion we're having today, be sure to follow at Mountaintop Productions on all social media platforms. And in particular, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on our YouTube channel. Now, to get a clearer image of what we're discussing today, take a look at the following insert.
Small, medium, and micro-sized enterprises are the backbone of the economy and the solution to unemployment crisis faced by South Africa, or so they say. In a country where the very same SMMEs have to fight tooth and nail to merely exist, how is this burden placed on them? We've all seen the stats. 50% of small businesses fail within a year of launch, 70 to 80% fail within their first 5 years, and this was the case before the COVID-19 pandemic. Most of these SMMEs happen to be black businesses that do not have some of the resources, networks, and safety nets that their white counterparts have. Now, what happens when the entire world is put through economic turmoil? What happens to small businesses in tourism when world travel no longer happens? Restrictions on what one may and may not sell are imposed on them. Then on top of that, your customers' movements are restricted by curfews. Then just as you're holding on by a shoestring, factors out of your control or influence decide to use your business to make a socio-political statement. Now, with many businesses drained of all working capital, looted of their stock and literally razed to the ground, it brings up the question of, do South African black businesses have what it takes to build enterprises that can rival white and Afrikaner businesses?
Now, as usual, we're joined by four amazing panelists who will be sharing some of their insights, arguments, as well as their versions of the truth. We're joined by Kinelo Rampesu, an agricultural entrepreneur, business owner, and the founder of KR Farming Enterprises. Kinelo, how are you?
I'm great, thanks, and how are yourself?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're also joined by Mr. Lebohang Nyandeni, the business owner and founder of Leb's Cafe, selling the ever-popular coffee brand eCoffee. How does it feel dealing with coffee beans and stuff?
It feels amazing, bro. It feels amazing.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We're also joined by Mr. Lebohang Daba, the researcher for the Human Sciences Research Council. Lebohang, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks yourself.
I'm awesome. We have two Lebohangs in studio today, so it should be an interesting conversation. We're also joined by a very good friend, former participant on One Day Leader, as well as co-founder of Tsimong, Mr. Tamipo. Tami, how are you doing?
I'm great, bro.
Awesome stuff.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for taking time off and being here today. So we have this discussion, right? And I think I first want to kick it off by asking a very simple question. I think I'll pose it to you, Tami. Whenever we talk about small businesses, right, we always attribute small businesses to cash businesses where you are buying and selling something,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So tell me, how would you define, or for the benefit of our viewers, what is a small business in the context of the discussion we're having today?
Cool. So I think it's very important to define a small business in terms of revenue, because that's actually how the South African government defines a small business globally.
Yeah.
So businesses that make a revenue between 1 Rand and 10 million Rand, for example, would be within the ambits of what we're talking about. Sometimes businesses that make from 10 million to 50 million also would count as small businesses as well.
Yeah.
But I think for the ambit of this discussion, we're talking about the first bracket. And, those businesses are very different. So those businesses could be, someone who's running a coffee cafe like Lebohang, or someone that is, running some kind of small consultancy, a law firm, whatever it may be. It can be a good, maybe a service, but as long as like the revenue threshold is sitting at around 10 million rand on an annual basis, I think that's a fair place to have this.
Yeah. And then Lebohang, do you think it's fair for us to look specifically at small black businesses in the country, or should we widen our argument or our discussion to other races? Is it fair for us to have this discussion within the confines of race?
Yeah, I think so, because, looking at where we come from, black people have always been the one that have been marginalized. So I think we need to pay more attention on black businesses, because obviously white or big corporations have been doing great even before the advent of democracy. So I think for this discussion, it will be actually great to focus on black businesses.
Yeah, yes. And I'm not asking that question because we're trying to play the race card. But most times when a business struggles, when a government struggles, or when you have state institutions failing, we're always attributed to blackness, right? So does that in some way mean that we ourselves condition ourselves to think of ourselves as failures or as incapable of growing our own business or growing our own brands? And I think we'll widen the discussion and where we go. But I just want to bring the conversation to you, Lebohang, as well as to you, Kinelo, right? Sure. You are both business owners, right? You provide a service and then you get paid for that particular service. Sure. Now, Lebohang, you have a coffee cafe. You deal with the production and the selling of coffee beans as well as coffee. Sure. Do you see Lebohang being able to compete with a Starbucks or with a multi-million rand coffee company, be it in the country or anywhere in the world?
I see Leb's Cafe being able to compete with your Starbucks, your Mug and Beans, because with the potential that the entrepreneur, which is me, have, and the vision and the goals that I have, I see it getting to that point. But I feel like if we as entrepreneurs were to be supported more by our government, and the government has to put black entrepreneurs first, people like me, people like Abu Usis Ngapa Uguti, they need to put her or him first so that she can be able to access the resources that she needs to be able to build the business and to grow it up.
But what happens in the event where government doesn't come to the party, right? Yeah. You're going to take a step back and be like, government is not joining the party, so I'm going to quit entrepreneurship and not be in business anymore.
Not really. I believe as an entrepreneur, you need to stand up and do it for yourself. You need to be out there. Mina, as an entrepreneur, I do sell the coffee in packages, but I also do sell it with my mobile trolley because I want to raise more profit and make more money without the government, because we've been applying to the government and the funding agencies that give us a lot of paperwork, of which some of those things we don't have.
Now, I understand what Lebohang is saying, that as an entrepreneur, you need to pick up your own socks and do the work. But you are in a particularly interesting field, and I think I'll put this discussion to everyone to participate in, right? South Africa comes from a past or a history where it wasn't, number one, from 1652 up until the dawn of democracy, a lot of black people did not have access to land, did not have access to resources. Now you find yourself in a position where you are not only a farmer, but you are black, you are female, and you are also young. Perhaps, do you feel like the argument that Lebohang is putting, that government does not provide enough support, does that even apply to you, or how do you go about conducting business for yourself? And furthermore, I think we'll just jump into that discussion to use your business as a case study, right? To find out what are some of the common trends that we see with entrepreneurs in the country, the black entrepreneurs in the country. We can argue that government or whichever other stakeholder is not coming to the party, right? But there's always this challenge that once I am Sydney and I'm this entrepreneur and I start making my first million, as opposed to investing in my business, I just go out and I blow money fast. You understand what I mean, right? So just an indication from you. What is it like being a black female farmer in this country with all of these racial tensions still existing and with farming still being a largely white, male-dominated field?
With farming, already we have got the stigma that it's only for males. And most people are interested in farming once they retire. once they're old enough.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. We still need young people in farming. So as a young black female within this industry, it's very hard. You always have to work 10 times harder to prove yourself that you can make it, that you belong within the industry, and you can be commercial as well. Understand? It's very hard to get to the standards of a commercial farmer. I've got land that is commercial, which is 405 hectares. But as personally, as an entrepreneur, I'm emerging, not commercial.
Yeah. Do you find that banks are willing to support you in the event where you need financial aid?
No.
I mean, apart from government, right? We'll have that discussion. But financial institutions that can see that you do have an asset that you can put up as surety, do you feel like you get that recognition and support?
It's always, they want security, first and first. Secondly, it's the interest they charge you on whatever loan that you ask for.
Yeah.
With agriculture, everything, especially in terms of livestock and crops, your production depends on your climate. If there's not enough rain, clearly means that your production is going to be less.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to pay the loan and the input cost as well and still manage to get profit? No.
Yeah.
No.
Do you feel like, and I'm sorry to ask this question this bluntly, are you of the opinion that if you're white or Afrikaner, you get the same treatment from financial institutions or from funders? I think we'll start with you.
From our side, when white people go to the bank, it's very easy for them to secure a loan, very easy for them to secure land. With us, it's difficult. We don't have the security. We don't have the enough capital they're looking for within the bank, the business account that you have. They want statements, they want this, they want that.
Yeah.
You do not have those, right? When you go to the government asking for resources, because of the corruption in our country, it takes time. You can, the same thing as RDPs, you apply today, in 10 years' time, there's still nothing. But there are those that apply today and get it tomorrow. It's a different case.
Interesting input, Sami.
Yeah, so look, I think from my perspective, I think the government needs to employ an ecosystem mentality when it looks at small businesses, particularly small black businesses. So for example, it's very difficult, as you're saying, for a black farmer who is an emerging farmer and isn't as commercial as like Z22 and all these other huge farms, right? It's very important for the government to look at these small farms and look at the value chains that they contribute to and see how those value chains can be fortified on their behalf. So for example, input costs. How can we put up a situation where emerging farmers can maybe have discounts on some of input items that they may have, right?
Yeah.
So what platforms may exist, for example, that can make it easier for black farmers such as yourself to collectivize some of their interests and their inputs and all those kinds of things. I think if we have an ecosystem mentality, you can apply this in farming, agriculture, and you can apply it across any other industry. But the problem is we don't have a startup mentality within the trade and industry space or within the small business space for government as well. And that's what's really holding us back, right? Like the people that have access to all these things have access by virtue of proximity. So you white and you have historical capital and all those kinds of things. Your proximity to these banks is far closer than to you, right? Whereas we don't have an actual ecosystem where your merit and your potential can be the reason why you can go far.
I hear that and I totally agree with you. But then, which begs the question, right? Do we have intentional political leadership that advances the interest of small black entrepreneurs?
No, again, right? From my perspective, it's we don't because look, maybe we do on paper, right? And then you get forms from the IDC and you're like, man, the kind of things that you require for me to have in order for me to secure a loan from the Industrial Development Commission, right, is crazy, insurmountable. You see what I'm saying? Whereas you might have greater proximity to that institution because of your political affiliation. You see what I'm saying? So it's the same thing.
So it's the connection that gets you the resources.
Exactly. So it's proximity. So whether you're white or whether you are an ANC elite, right, it's the same kind of proximity that gets you far, and that's unsustainable for our country.
Lebza, so there's this challenge, right? And I totally agree with what Tammy's saying. The closer you are to your connection or to your network, the easier it is for you to get things done. But then Sydney gets things done. And Sydney is able to get this huge batch of funding from whichever corporation is able to fund Sydney.
Yeah.
And Sydney goes out and he buys himself these very nice and flashy cars, pops bottles, right?
Yeah.
And that is unfortunately a mentality that has developed into a stereotype that if you're black, you're an entrepreneur, the minute you are able to get some rands or some resources, this is the lifestyle that you are headed for. Is that a correct assumption?
Well, I think it's like that. If you look at what is happening in the country, you find a lot of entrepreneurs that when they finally make it, all they think about is to show the world that they are there. I think that is what is killing us. We don't actually have entrepreneurs that say, okay, I managed to maybe make 10 million out of this business. Let me try to venture into another one. You find that people cannot sustain that. They cannot be in business for long. And then you visit them 5-10 years later, they nobody. They no longer into business. They no longer doing anything. So I think, again, financial literacy is very important. Financial literacy is very important. So once these people start businesses, I think it is important for them to go get some financial management certificates and all that, and be equipped so that they know how to run businesses. They know about people management. They know about all these sectors.
And I would like to add into that people tend to think that entrepreneurship is all flashy and classy. Entrepreneurship is about sweat. It's about getting to the ground and getting the things done. It's not about back-to-back meetings, suits and ties and stuff. You need to have, when you venture into that space, I
understand entirely what you mean, right? There's blood, there's sweat, there's tears. Kinelo has been on that farm, sweating like crazy, taking care of those pigs, those cows, and then Kinelo finally gets her breakthrough, right? Shouldn't Kinelo reward herself by having a bottle of champagne or two? Is that honestly such a bad thing?
She should.
Or are we going about it the wrong way? Now, Lebohang says that there's a need for financial literacy.
Sure.
But how easy is it, or how accessible are the institutions that are able to offer you that financial literacy? Or even as individuals, how many individuals actually get up and say that I am going to go learn how to use my money?
Yeah, financial literacy, the institutions sometimes they're very expensive for us, for me personally as an entrepreneur, to go out there to try to get into that space and learn actually about financial literacy. They would charge me a lot of money which I don't have. I want to go there to get the skills of how to manage my finances in my business, and I don't have the money. If I had the money, I was not going to go there because I already now have the money.
And we'll have more for you after this ad break. Over the past couple of years, South Africa has seen a dramatic increase in protests ranging from service delivery, protests in universities and colleges, as well as racism in schools.
Protest is the last resolute. The access that we on this panel have to institutions is not necessarily the access that all South Africans have.
The laws of this country must be respected by both foreign nationals and South Africans.
But if you are sitting in a community with no water, which is a basic right that you need to live, with no electricity for you to cook for your children, how then must you be able to reason and say that I am not going to the streets?
The unrests that we saw, people going into stores to steal food, I don't think that's an element of criminality.
The lack of accountability in government is the result of the reality that we are faced with today.
Welcome back. Now, this episode would not have been possible had not been for the sponsorship of the National Film and Video Foundation. Today on the episode, we're discussing, do South African black businesses lack the capacity to build enterprises that can rival white and Afrikaner businesses in the future? Very interesting insights that we had before the break. If you have your own opinions, be sure to add them by following us at Mountaintop Productions and by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Mountaintop Productions. Now, I want to bring the conversation back a bit, right, to you, Kinelo, as well as to you, Lebohang. You are a farmer, you're an agricultural entrepreneur, and you are a coffee entrepreneur, right? Can I just ask, your main service provider, right? Someone who sells fertilizer for your farm in the event where you are growing crops. Is it a black-owned or white-owned business?
It's white-owned.
It's a white-owned business. And with you?
It's a white-owned business.
It's a white-owned business, right? And today we're discussing whether or not black businesses are able to rival white and Afrikaner businesses in the future. Tami, Lebohang, what do you make of that?
I think it's tough, I think if we're in a state where we're actually pushing for black empowerment, we shouldn't still be having black entrepreneurs getting their supplies from predominantly white industries. I think if we still want to push for black people to be empowered, for black people to be employed, most of these supplies that you want, maybe most of these fertilizers and your coffee, I don't know what
Coffee beans.
Coffee beans need to actually to be sourced from black people. Yeah.
Well, I want to complicate it a little bit. So I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it.
Yeah.
I think in any market, I should be able to buy from the person that can offer me the best value. That's it. You're a farmer, you need the best fertilizer for your crops, because if you don't have the best fertilizer for your crops, you won't be able to farm properly.
Exactly.
Right? It becomes a problem when structurally black producers who add real value are excluded on purpose.
Yeah.
So if there's like an oligarchic system, for example, in the world of producing fertilizer, where emerging black producers of fertilizer are excluded, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
Then the state must intervene. Then you must have policies that can bubble those people up, right? But in a world where Lebohang can choose between me and a white person, and sees the difference between our products and likes the white person's products, Lebohang by all means has an opportunity to say, look, let me take that guy's product, and that's cool. It's about value. We just need an equal opportunity to participate in the market. I think that's what we're really advocating for.
Do you believe that equal opportunity exists?
I don't think so. So I don't. I think that there are many industries where where it's hard for black people to even start. And I think that's where the South African government has to have the ambition to give black people the capital and resources to start and thrive in those specific industries.
Yeah. Let's just find out from Lebohang and Kinebe, right? Are you using white service providers because they are the only ones who are available to provide that service? Is it because they provide the best service? Or is it because you have some experience of working with black entrepreneurs who can provide a service to you, and then you might have had an encounter? I'll start with you, Kinebe, and then to Lebohang.
When it comes to buying fertilizers and seeds, I use one company because we've been using it for many years. The service is excellent. The product quality is excellent as well. So that's why I prefer them all the time.
So you've never tried to step out of it?
I have tried, but the quality is not what I need, because before we plant, we do soil testing. So it has to match with my soil in order to give me great produce. So if it does not match, I cannot go to that company because I'll be killing myself as an entrepreneur. I will not get what I want, the end product. Yes.
When you were using this service provider and the quality was not up to scratch, did you indicate to them? Did you notify them?
Definitely I did, but it's not everybody that likes to be criticized on their product, because everybody believes that I'm doing better. But if you cannot take criticism as an entrepreneur, you will never grow, because you won't change whatever that's making your business to fail. You need to improve in order to grow.
And you have to grow.
I have to grow as well. So I go whatever way that is suitable for me and for my business. So if I'm saying I've tried your product, but I don't see anything that is improving, so I'm just going to back down and going to go back to my old supplier, right?
Because I'm asking myself the question, did you at least give the service provider opportunity to improve? But we'll get to that discussion. These are conversations I'm having in this big old head of mine. And then with you, Lebohang, is it because that they provide the best service that's available, or was there no other alternative? Was there no other choice?
So with me, when I started having a dream of starting a coffee brand, it was in 2018. I went and consulted this other lady. She also does the same thing. She's black. But then she gave me crazy figures, and I couldn't stand that. Then I postponed. Then 2020 actually, I made some research and I found this other white company, and it was quite affordable. So I think the reason why that lady was more expensive is because she doesn't have the resources to help me process everything. She was gonna get them from somewhere, and they need to pay that other person so that now she can.
So
have
middlemen in between.
in between. So that is why I ended up going to the white guys before because now they have everything. They have all the resources. But now I'm here. I'm dealing with these white guys, and everything is fine. But I spotted another opportunity to work with someone who's black, and they based here in South Africa. And that was going to give us an opportunity to be proudly SA and create more employment for black people. You know. So now this guy, I'm consulting with him. With him, can you please help me do this thing? Now he's blue ticking me. He doesn't want to supply me. I don't know for what.
And it's a side event whenever someone does get blue ticked, right?
Yeah.
But then the big challenge that I have, fine, we can talk about structural and political reform and how there are policies that need to be in place, right?
Yes.
We can talk about how if you're using me as a service provider and you're not happy with my service,
you can just choose someone else.
You can just choose someone else, right?
Yeah.
But and I think I want to put this to everyone. From your experience, from what you've read, from what you've seen, from services that you've bought, do you think that black businesses take accountability, right? And you can put it on a scale of 1 to 10 in your head, right? Do we take accountability in terms of the type of service that we provide? Are we intentional in providing good quality service and or products? Do we create a value chain among ourselves? For example, if I am Sydney and I've got coffee beans, right? What would push you to not buy from me? And exactly what you're saying about sometimes prices are overinflated, right? Do we have sort of like a quality measuring system in place that we use on our own businesses, right? And this is not particularly directed to your business, but businesses outside that are owned by young black entrepreneurs.
I think it's important for anyone in the market, especially black people, especially black businesses, to aspire to be globally competitive. Because you know what? We are probably the only country where someone may make a material consideration of I'm going to buy from Sydney because he's black, but when you leave the borders of South Africa, no one thinks like that. Sorry. Right? So we have to already think of ourselves as globally competitive entities. How do I make a rival to Starbucks in South Africa by my own means, right? Look, there may be other structural difficulties that makes the Starbucks value chain have an advantage over you, but what can I provide from a service point of view that can make me rival them in real terms? I think that's, as soon as we hit that mentality, we will never hit the kind of brick walls that we have where now someone gives you a shabby service and they kind of manipulate you by using the black card. I don't know, it's like, it's no, that's unacceptable. Or have you, like, any wedding, for example, you've been to, like if you've organized a wedding, right? And like the caterer arrives like hours late, as if that's something we're supposed to accept, right? Whereas if you have a wedding in Bryanston, it's totally different.
Time.
Do you see what I'm saying? Whereas if we have a globally competitive standard as black people in general, we won't even be having this conversation.
So focus on quality and not on race.
On blackness, no.
Okay.
Blackness won't buy you anything.
I think he's right. I think it's more about quality than just playing the race card to say, we've been disadvantaged, so help me, and maybe I'll be able to uplift someone else. But I think at the same time, we should not forget that we are not on the same level. We're talking of black businesses, we're talking of white businesses. The reality is these people, these white corporations were started back then when the environment was still fertile for them, and black businesses were not allowed.
When it was easy to loot and steal.
It was actually easy for white people to actually to be successful. So now you get a black business that has been trying, to pull through, and you find that on the policy side is not even working for them. There's tight regulations. He was talking about when he wanted to start a business, it was actually difficult for him because he gets a lot of paperwork that he needs to do, and it's actually tough for him. But on the other side, so I think we should.
But I have a problem with that, right? I have a problem with that statement that there's a lot of paperwork and it's difficult. Isn't the whole point of paperwork there so that you can go through the paperwork, fill in what needs to be filled? It takes us back to the question of accountability, right? If I'm not willing to go through all the steps in order to get funding, if that is what I need to do. If I'm complaining that it's too much, then who do I have to blame at the end of the day?
Again, I think it's not only about people. I think we are talking about getting skills, getting education. If you go, let's say to a company that offers financial literacy, whether you're a small businesses or you're a big business, you will be charged the same. So I think those are the things that we still need to look into to say, okay, I'm an emerging entrepreneur, I'm a small business, so the charge should not be the same. You know, I cannot be competing with Leb's Cafe cannot be on the same level as Starbucks. You know, if people from Starbucks want to go get financial literacy certificate, they should be charged higher. So those are the things that we need to look at.
Is there a stigma associated to black businesses, that black businesses are lazy, black businesses do not provide quality, black businesses are never on time, black businesses this, black businesses that? Do we always look at the failure of a black business and focus more on the fact that this person is failing because he's black, because of structural inequality, and not look at whether or not this person was providing the best possible service in the first place? While in that time,
I think the stigma is there. You know, we cannot shy away from it. It's there. But again, if you look at other businesses, I think it's different strokes for different folks. You know, there's businesses that actually do good. There's black businesses that do good.
Absolutely.
You know, I can make an example with More Fire, Bar 2, Drape. You know, those are businesses that are doing globally competitive, and they're empowering a lot of black people in South Africa. So I think as time goes by,
and intentionally black at the same time, right? Because we can't speak about. Here's the thing: we can't speak about business in South Africa without mentioning the racial tensions that have existed and that still exist, right? So in order for you to succeed as a black business, it's even far more difficult because of the type of history that we have as a country. But at the same time, you know, these stigmas that are associated to black business, I mean, you mentioned some very good, some very prominent, powerful names. But is that the common picture that exists? Do all black businesses have that durability, that perseverance, that consistent work ethic to move from just being Lebza selling coffee on the street to Lebza occupying Bryanston and having the Lebza Cafe there?
Again, let me start with the first question you asked about empowerment. I think empowerment is definitely an imperative for black business people. I think it's very, very important for us to see ourselves leveling up in the game. Right? But I think also we have so many resources. Like the internet gives us so many resources to put us in a position to scale, sustain our enterprises. You know, sometimes, speaking about financial literacy earlier, you don't need to go to school for that, man. You don't need to go to any school for any of that stuff. There are multiple courses, articles, all sorts of resources online that we can have access to. Big organizations like Y Combinator in Silicon Valley tend to distribute resources on YouTube that we can benefit from on a daily basis. It's up to the black entrepreneur to aspire towards being globally competitive. For me, that's going to be a theme in this conversation, right? Because at the end of the day, if I deliberately empower black businesses, I'm going to empower black businesses that specifically have quality in mind as I do, right? I'm not going to. I'm not gonna.
It won't be because I'm black, you're black. Let's do this blackness thing together.
So being black is going to be a thing, right? I think that's going to be, but your quality though is going to retain you in my language, right? Not your blackness, to be very honest with you. And I think that's what black people need to understand, that the world will not care about whether or not you're black at some point, right? What we need to deal with is instances where you have deliberate market exclusions. And that's where the state comes in. That's where, we need to activate and agitate. But in instances where it's between me and you, and you're not quite happy with the quality of work that I produce as a black supplier, don't take me, don't support me.
Yeah.
Right? Let me be the reason for my downfall.
They want you to take a job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Back to what he was saying about that you don't need to go to school. There's a lot of information and courses that you can do online.
Yeah.
I think we should not, again, back to what we said earlier. As South Africa, you know where we come from. A lot of people, you're from the VAL, maybe a lot of people, somebody who's down there in Kilele doesn't have access to internet. How are they gonna get those resources?
Access to resources.
Access to resources.
Right. We're gonna have a conversation around access to resources immediately after this ad break.
Everything that was centered around black economy, if it's even a reality, was looted. Sandton is 5 minutes from Alexandra. Was Sandton looted? Melrose Arc is even closer. Was it looted? Was there any chance of it being looted? No. But everything in the black community was looted.
Welcome back. Now, this episode of Beyond the Truth would not have been possible if it wasn't for the sponsorship of the National Film and Video Foundation. Today, we're still discussing the question, do South African black businesses lack the capacity to build enterprises that can rival white and Afrikaner businesses in future? Remember, to follow this discussion and to also add your comments to what we're discussing today, be sure to follow at Mountaintop Productions on all social media platforms, and in particular, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on our YouTube channel at Mountaintop Productions. Now, before the break, we were talking about how, as an individual, as an entrepreneur, Tammy, you were saying that if quality is not at the heart of the work that you do, regardless of whether you are a black entrepreneur or not, it is the quality that's going to retain you, right? And we had that whole discussion around how you can watch tutorials on YouTube on how to become the excellent farmer, and how you can read up on the internet about how to manage your finances. But Lebohang has a different view. Maybe Lebohang, you can share that view with us?
Yes, I think it's not just easy for everybody. There's people that actually have this access to resources, But what about somebody who's there in a less developed area, somebody who comes from the rural areas? How do they get access, to these resources? Learn about becoming the best farmer, learn about being the best coffee maker, and all that. Yes, I think
you have the vision, you have the work ethic, but you don't have the access to resources. Tell me, what do you make of that?
I don't know. I think it's important for us to give individual black people agency when we talk about them. I think, for example, it is true that in predominant communities, black people may not have access to the kind of things that I may have in my communities, right? But like it's at the end of the day, it's going to boil down to what you prioritize as an individual person, right? Like I know someone, for example, who frequents an internet cafe, right? In order for them to do to type their CV. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can do the same kind of thing when you prioritize your business, right? Like every once in a while, we do have enough data to go through WhatsApp stories. We can also use that very data to, serve the internet about the interests that we are getting into as people. The reality is no one, not even the state, as we're learning, no one is getting into these communities and giving people the access that we're talking about. It's Gebatu that are going to have to do it for themselves. So if you have the ambition to start your own business, if you're aspiring to start your own business, it will be incumbent on you, no matter how poor you are, right, to do that research and to understand your business more than anyone and to prioritize it.
Interesting insights. Now, very recently in the country, we had these protests in KwaZulu-Natal and in Gauteng, and a number of malls, a number of shopping centers were being looted and were being destroyed, and not by some white or Afrikaner business person from somewhere in Stellenbosch, but by the very black people in our very own communities, right? Destroying any business. It didn't matter if you are an Edcon group, if you were the beneficiary of Rupert, if you were a Leb's Cafe, every single business was being destroyed. Do you think that in our townships themselves, that in our townships, our communities see the value of the work that we do as small black entrepreneurs? Is there even a value system in place where they feel the need to caress and harness and take care of your business? Or when things hit the fan, is it you're a business, we're looting everything?
I don't think so. I don't think our people in our communities are taking our businesses seriously. They don't see the value that our businesses are actually contributing towards other people's lives. For an example, I run Labs Cafe, like you've mentioned. I have freelancers, guys working for me. Those guys, I pay them for them to work. That means they are able to put food in their tables at home. Maybe serve 5 families. One person serves 5 families per night.
Sure.
But now, if you don't see the value in my business, that means you're gonna do anything to disrupt the operation of my business. Yeah. And part of that was my parcels that were said to be couriered to different parts in South Africa. They were snatched during the lootings. They were snatched at PEP stores via the Pexi courier. So that affected me very bad, because now I can't really pay these guys. The person that I sent them to go and drop those things there, I can't have money to pay them food to
Just to come in there, sure. So your parcels were taken from an established store, right?
Sure.
If you were Lebohang standing on the corner selling your coffee and they saw you with your packages and they were not in a sealed package from a store, do you think they would have reacted, they still would have acted the same way? Would you have kissed that coffee goodbye? Either way?
Hey, my guy, that one.
Right? Because the reason why I'm asking this particular question is because we're asking the question around value in our communities, right? Sure. And it's a very simple question. If it was you holding your coffee, standing in the street, and they were running towards the mall, ready to loot, would they have passed you without taking anything from you because they know that you hire 4 people?
Yeah, they were going to pass me, definitely. They were going to pass me. Now I see the value that they see. Even more. Because I have a friend. He owns a saloon. It's inside the mall, and other people in the community, they do know that he owns that saloon, but they snatch the material. Exactly. So just because they think it's in the mall, maybe it belongs to a white guy, and we want to room for these guys.
But maybe he's making a lot of money. And
maybe I was coming there. Maybe he's making a lot of money. So why would he succeed alone? Maybe why not me? Why am I not the one in the mall?
With my regard, now the funny part is that most people who are stealing from me are not black. They are white. Those who own abattoirs, those who own butchers, they send the black ones to do the job. You get a mere 5,000 for a cow that costs 20,000 and you're happy, and then they take the meat. So it's not only the blacks that mess up and steal, whites also do the same thing, because they're looking at the quality of my cows, like good quality, great feeding, let's take it. It's going to give us.
Could it be that part of the reason why, I understand all of these other factors, right? I understand the question around leadership and political will and policies that need to be implemented and need to be put in place.
Yes.
But could the other reason why black businesses do not grow is because of our own attitude towards black businesses, right?
Definitely.
It's because of our utterances and our attitude towards black businesses that disable them from growth. Very interesting insight. Earlier on when you said that, and this is also an indication of how we've been conditioned as a people as well. Earlier on when you were mentioning that you hire people and then they steal from you, I was like, in my head I was like, Marabuda, you understand,
most
right?
of the job, because they know how the farm functions, so it's always an inside job. Someone who comes from outside will struggle, but if you know my locking system, my security system, it's an easy way for you to get in. It's always an inside job.
That size
exactly.
That is shocking. That is alarming. An attitude question, right? An attitude question. I think we've seen it on Twitter with black entrepreneurs complaining that it's not the white guy driving past that is asking for a discount or asking for credit or saying, give me the product, I'll pay you back at the end of the month. It's your next door neighbor, someone who lives with you and ignores you when it's pay time. What do you make of the types of attitude that we have as a black community towards our own brothers and sisters' businesses?
think it's a tough one. And I think, say you come from the same community. You have a friend that you were close with, maybe before you started the company. Then once you start the company, maybe they start to think that, how about I start maybe messing it up? Yeah, messing it up for this guy, so that we can come back to the same level. I feel like maybe as black people, we have this mentality of pulling each other down. It's more about pulling each other down than it is about uplifting one another.
But isn't that in itself a mentality that has been conditioned? That black people have a mentality of pulling each other down, and because people believe it, then even when your business starts failing, you don't look at the fact that I didn't do my cost accounting correctly, I didn't check my books regularly, I didn't have an auditor check my books, I didn't do the work. I just looked at Lebza and thought that, Lebza, I sell techies, you sell techies, you're trying to pull me down, right? Do we ever take accountability as black entrepreneurs? Is there ever a point in time where we say that my business failed because of me, because of what I did? Is there ever a time like that? Anyone? I'm so sorry. Right?
Look, I think this is a very, very deep question. I think because it's a nuanced conversation. Because one thing I kept talking about, like harping on, is quality. Like people have to have quality, blah, 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 right? But like, what about instances where you have a market? Because we black people constitute the biggest buying market in the country, like by far, right?
I think that is why malls were able to reopen as quickly as they did,
exactly.
right? Because you steal today, you steal tomorrow, but the following day you're definitely gonna buy.
So I think simultaneously you're right in the sense that there is a prevalent mentality. Black businesses, even if they sell quality, right, aren't the same as this guy. So like someone still makes the calculation between Rich Nisi and like an Italian brand. Or someone makes a calculation between Batu and Adidas and chooses Adidas, whereas Barcelona is of the same quality as Adidas. Do you see what I'm saying? So there also needs to be a level of conscientization. We have a lot of work to do as black people. We have a lot of work to do as black people, where it's not just marketing ourselves, but it's also like conscientizing or but like blackness is a legitimate thing. You can it's I can legitimately make Tepo jeans, right, and rival Levi's, and you make the decision between Levi's and Tepo jeans based on premium quality and not based on American white standard versus a guy named Tepo.
Which brings me to the next question. I think I'll just put it to everyone. We'll start with you, Ginevra. Does the consumer really care when you go to a shop and you buy something? Do you care who owns the shop, their race, their creed, their background? Does it matter, right? Not to us sitting in this room having the discussion on blackness and whiteness, but to the ordinary person who's going to buy lunch today. Do they care who they get their lunch from?
When you talk about lunch, it depends on what do I want to eat. It depends on what quality you're producing that I want. We can compare the chips it's Steers and McDonald's. If I prefer McDonald's, I will go to McDonald's. But when it comes to us within the agricultural sector, when your cow on the stand on an auction, we don't know who's the owner. They start bidding at a certain price. And then after they say the cow is 15,000, it's being sold for 15,000, does the owner agree? And they say, Kinelo, where are you in the crowd? You put up your hand. People are amazed. How can a female like her, so young, sell a cow at 15,000? Would you fight in? Why is it the quality like this? You understand? So I don't think it matters most, because even if when we go to buy, sometimes.
So from you, it's a yes and no.
It's a yes and no. Yes.
It's a no. It doesn't matter until you see who's selling.
Yes. It depends on what are you looking for. Yes.
Let's bring it to the wall.
If I like it, I buy it. Simple as that. If I like your product, if it's good quality, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're my friend, or whether you're just someone that I don't know, I buy it. I support you. If I like it, I buy it.
I think it's more about quality. As long as it's quality, you're gonna go for it. It doesn't matter who produced. It doesn't matter if the person is white. It doesn't matter if the entity is black. As long as it's good quality, you're gonna go for it. So I don't really think that customers or consumers really pay attention to that.
Which gives me a problem, right? Because if you guys are saying that at the end of the day, it's all about quality and the quality that you're producing, then that in essence doesn't even answer what we're discussing, right? So how do you grow as a black business? Why do you not? And I'll put you into this one, Tammy, specifically, right? You want the small black business to grow. You want this black entrepreneur to improve where their service is lacking. You want to reach a point where, this black business is able to sustain itself, where if it's in the township, you want it to be able to move out of the township and move into the Sandton Square, for example, right? But you are not intentional about buying black products. Which at times the product itself could not be of the same quality as an Italian brand or as a French brand, right? But why does that consciousness lack that this person is starting out? I don't think that Tsepo Jeans started out as the Tsepo Jeans, right? Or Skinny's Blue Socks didn't start out as Skinny's Blue Socks. I mean, we saw the struggle. Now we can talk about More Fire now because of how it's established and the variety of products that it's going into. But before we didn't have that privilege, and we were selling them on the street.
You know what it is? I think, and this is a word that we always use in entrepreneurs. It's access to market, right? So let's look at those two case studies, More Fire and Skinny's Boo. Right. Not Skinny's Boo. Sorry, Tsepo Jeans. Right. When Tsepo Jeans was in the CBD area, right? I don't think he was pushing the kind of sales that he's making now that he's in Hyde Park Corner. Right. Because next to his shop is another boutique shop that sells Balmain. Right. So the guy who's walking through Hyde Park Corner has Tsepo Jeans as their option because it's readily available to them in that moment. Right? More Fire, right now at Pick and Pay, like if you're Pick and Pay Brideshead, right? It's sitting next to cans of Monster and Red Bull, right? Now that's access to market. So the consumer who's looking for an energy drink, right, will consider, oh man, More Fire, $1. Whereas they it's very difficult for that same consumer to just kind of like see it on the street corner, etc., etc., etc. So yes, there needs to be a level of conscientization. But again, like the common buyer doesn't think like that, right? The common buyer is someone that is wooed by marketing, is wooed by all sorts of things that any other regular buyer is wooed by. And so once you have access to that buyer, then you have a good shot at getting them their 20 Rand for that kind of More Fire.
I think the challenge with access to markets, but I agree fully with what you're saying as well. The challenge with access to markets is the assumption that just because it is visible, it is of a higher quality. Is that always the case? As we draw towards a close, let me just put it out for a minute or two before we wrap it up.
I think it also, everything depends on me as an entrepreneur, like Tani said. With More Fire, it started with Jisbu, Now I want to be successful as a young black farmer.
Can't expect you to go to the traffic lights,
no. If I can slaughter my own meat, go around selling it, going to Woolworths by test, going to Spar by test, this is what we need. Who's going to come to me? Am I going to wait for the government? Here's an opportunity. No. When is the government going to come? How is Woolworths going to know about me if I don't go to them? How is Spar going to know there's a person called Kinelo if I do not access myself to them? They won't know. That's why we've got social media platforms that you can use as well to make yourself accessible to everyone. Advertise yourself. It doesn't matter how, just do it. Because I'm not going to sit here saying I'm waiting for the government to give me funding in order to start. When are they going to give me funding? It's the same as saying I'm not going to work until I get a certain job within my degree. Who said it's going to come? I've got a degree in economics. I'm doing life psychology right now, but I'm a farmer.
I think the unfortunate part of everything that we're discussing is that we just wish we had more time to talk about degrees and traffic lights and every single other thing that is hampering or that is advancing black businesses in the country. So many different discussions that we've had, some very important notes and topics that we touched on, in particular that entire discussion around interest rates and how banks are charging black entrepreneurs more. And the whole discussion around where you are situated and where you're conducting business, I really wish we had more time to unpack these discussions, but hopefully we'll have more time in the future. Those were their views. What are yours? Be sure to add your comments on all social media platforms at Mountaintop Productions, and in particular, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Mountaintop Productions, where you can also add your own comments as well. This episode would not have been possible had it not been for the sponsorship of the National Film and Video Foundation. See you next time.